Daniel from Great Music Studio. In this video, I want to speak to you about what I believe is the best way to think about your studio in 2019. The best way to think of the philosophy that should guide how you think about your studio in 2019 and beyond. Honestly, we're in a social media age right now, and what I'm about ready to talk to you about is kind of the paradigm that is going to dictate what studios succeed and what studios struggle for the foreseeable future. So even though I'm making this video today, September 2019, I think the implications of what I'm talking about here are going to be true for a long time to come. Now, a couple topics we're going to cover in this video. First off, I want to talk about the 3 vulnerabilities that I see that most studios have. So I have identified 3 vulnerabilities, things upon which a studio lives or dies in this time period that we're in right now. Second thing, I want to show you 5 different ways that we can make practice easier for kids. So obviously this is more of a strategic business video, but I think you'll see as we get deeper into this why that particular topic is so important as it pertains to those 3 vulnerabilities I talked to you about. And I'm going to wrap this all together at the end and explain why all this is important and why I think this is so critical. So no matter what size your studio is, whether it's 15 or 500, if you have a desire to treat your business as a business, if you are serious about it, if you want to exhibit professionalism, if growth is a concern or a factor to you, I think there's something here in this video. If, on the other hand, if those things aren't important to you, then maybe this video isn't for you, and you might think to yourself, well, why wouldn't those be important? I know a lot of teachers that they're very happy with the size of studio that they're at. They might be at a plateau in their career, and they're very, very happy at that plateau. If that's the case, then maybe the thoughts in this video aren't for you. If you're very happy with your numbers, if you're happy with your income, if you're happy with the way that your studio functions, then maybe it's not for you. But if you happen to be in the other category, if you want more growth, if you want more, if there is a desire to continue evolving as a professional, then what I'm going to say here I think is really, really important. I've been giving this a lot of thought. This isn't a more tactical video. Sometimes I do tactical videos. I talk about different techniques you should be using. I focus on a very specific topic like testimonials or how to get kids to practice more. That's not this video. This is a little more high level. So, having said that, let's jump in with a very simple thought, and then we're going to expand that thought through the remainder of this video. And here's that simple thought. Your entire service, your entire studio, whether it is a single discipline studio with piano or guitar, drums or voice, or you're a multi-discipline studio with multiple teachers, what we are living in right now is a time where your entire service, everything is the product. Not just the lessons themselves, but everything that a parent experiences from the time that they begin with you to the time that they end or as they're ongoingly working with you is the product. Because what consumers have come to expect in this day and age is a total end-to-end experience, not just a commodified product. Now, if you were selling toothpaste, I might have different advice for you, but that is not what's happening. In service-based businesses, people are expecting more in this time. Now, this is kind of the abstract concept. And I struggle almost to put words to this because it's so abstract and so simple that there's really nothing to explain there. So I'm thinking, is this broken down enough? Like I even feel myself in this moment kind of faltering a little bit because I'm thinking, is it really that simple? I really do believe it is. The implications of that, though, I think that's where we can get into having an interesting discussion. So stick with me here for just a second. Because like I said, they are buying the entire experience of taking lessons from you, whether they're going to be only interacting with you because you're a single teacher studio, or they're interacting with you plus staff, whether that's desk staff, the teacher that their child actually takes from. No matter what it is, they're interacting with someone and they're expecting a different kind of experience. So we cannot make their lives hard. This is kind of the next logical point in this train of thought that I want to communicate here. We cannot make their lives hard. Let me give you an example. We might think it's okay to offer paper checks as a service. To accept paper checks as a service. So that's kind of what we say, oh, we only accept paper checks. Just because that's the way we've always done it. Now, maybe you don't. Bear with me here because the thought applies across many different domains, because whether or not you offer paper or accept paper checks is immaterial. There might be something you're doing that a parent might just look at it and scratch their head, but the problem is that they won't. The parent won't stop to consider whether or not they want to use paper checks. They might grumble about how inconvenient it is, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, because what they're looking for is an experience, they don't have this tally column that they're going to think, well, we had these good experiences and these bad and then these bad experiences, and the good outweigh the bad, or the bad outweigh the good, therefore we're going to quit or we're not. Because it's all one thing, it just kind of goes into this, it bypasses rational thought and goes straight to emotion, and over time, parents begin to have fatigue of being in our studio or of taking lessons. I'm going to deal with this a little bit more in a minute, because as I mentioned in the video description, I want us all to learn from a mistake that Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, I want us all to learn from him. And I'm going to go into this in just a little bit, but keep that thought in mind. Everything is the product now. We can't make their lives hard. And so what ultimately I'm saying, and this is really the point that I'm driving at, is that everything is marketing now. That marketing is not an action that we do once in a while, or it's not fancy graphics that we post to a Facebook page. It's not an ad. It's not the words that we write on the website. All of those things are part of your marketing. But what I'm saying is that everything is actually marketing now, because it is an ongoing way of relating to your customers. It is an ongoing way of how you communicate to your customers. It is an ongoing way of having principles by which you do business. And so, this is really what I'm getting to. If your studio lives and dies by students practicing, by parents being involved, by the music or the lessons being easy, then how are you factoring marketing into those things? So here's my point. Why do people quit a studio? Why do they not stay in your business? We've had the same cell phone plan. We've upgraded, we made changes to it for over 10 years, for over 12 years at this point now. Why didn't we leave it? Because we liked it. Why would a parent leave your studio? Because they don't like it anymore. And so what I'm saying is that those 3 vulnerabilities that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, those 3 things that your studio lives or dies by, are students practicing, parents being involved, and whether the lesson program feels easy or desirable. And so I want to dive in, as we finish the video, I want to dive into those 3 points. How are you factoring marketing and the enjoyment of the product into those things? Let's start with the first one, students practicing. You have to square up with the fact that if the product is not easy to use, people will quit the product. In this particular case, they will quit your studio, they will quit lessons because the product wasn't easy to use. There's a fascinating story. You might actually remember this actually happening. The iPhone got released in 2007. And they were to generation 4 of the iPhone somewhere around 2010 or 2011, something like that. But they were on the iPhone 4. They're up to iPhone 11, actually just got announced today. So iPhone 4 comes out and it starts dropping calls like crazy. And I don't know how they didn't catch this in their testing, but they didn't. And Apple engineers figured out that the new antenna style that they had engineered into the iPhone 4 was was not strong enough. And the iPhone was actually, or the antenna was actually built into the outer edge of the iPhone, so when people were holding it, they were actually cutting off their reception because Apple actually engineered the antenna into the outside of the phone. So Steve Jobs comes on stage and basically tells the world, all these tens of millions of consumers who had bought the iPhone 4, you have to hold your phone this way. And he held it like right at the very, very bottom. This is how you have to hold your phone now until we can issue a fix. The press murdered him, right? The press just absolutely dumped all over Apple. They criticized Steve. They talked about the arrogance of the company telling consumers how to use the phone and all this sort of thing. And the mistake that Steve made was telling consumers how to use the product when they had an expectation of how the product should be used. Of course, it's fine. If someone said, oh, I'm going to take my iPhone underwater, and leave it there for days and days and days, and I expect it to work, well, obviously, that's not rational. But consumers had a specific expectation of how they should be able to use their phone, and then it didn't happen. Parents have an expectation on the front end, and you'll often see this. Parents have this thought of, we're afraid that they won't practice. But they have an expectation that maybe their child is different, and they're really hoping that that's the case. And when they actually get into it, when they actually get into the lesson program and they actually begin to experience the child fighting them on practice, not wanting to go to the piano, not wanting to go to the guitar, not wanting to go to the drums, not wanting to do their vocal warm-up drills, like whatever discipline they're in, when parents actually begin to experience that, then they have a new expectation. They come to the teacher. Hey, can you help us solve this problem? Teacher says, well, the teacher could say any number of things. Not my problem. I'll see what I can do. They might give them all kinds of fun songs to learn, take them out of the method books, jump them around from book to book, play games, do crafts. Ultimately, if it doesn't work, the parent now has a new expectation that this is just going to be life as it is. And once they're there, you can count the months until they quit. And for, depending on their family values, depending on how patient the parent is, it could be months. It could be 6 months, it could be a year, but their days are numbered at that point. And what I'm saying is that there is just an expectation that this should work. That if music is actually enjoyable, like what we're promising, then why isn't my child wanting to practice more? So if your studio lives or dies by the child practicing, what are you doing to communicate expectations on the front end, and what are you doing to solve that problem? Because like I said, that is a vulnerability. And we have to address that vulnerability on the front end with parents. So that's the first thing. Okay, second vulnerability, parents being involved. So how are you taking responsibility for parents being involved? And I think you have two options here. You either require it or you make it unnecessary. Now, when I talk about parents being involved, I'll look at my own 6-year-old. My 6-year-old comes to lessons with me, but to keep a nice balance between dad being the teacher and not being on his case all the time, when he does his practice, he does it with mom. And so I'll be in my office here, and I'll hear them practicing together in the downstairs piano room. And I'll hear mistakes through the floor and things of that nature. But mom does that. And what I've noticed is that if mom is in the room and paying attention, he does really, really well. If mom is around the corner, maybe walks out of the room because a phone call came in, or she's cooking something on the stove and has to go check it, even in those fleeting moments while she's not in the room, the concentration, the focus, the engagement flags. I can hear it through the floorboards. If I was in the room, you could definitely see it, but of course if I was in the room it would be different, so I don't do that. My point is that we all know as teachers that parents have to be involved if kids are really going to have a good experience. And so, on our end, for our expectation, if parents aren't involved, that is a vulnerability in our product because it's required. So, we have to take responsibility by either making parents be involved, and I can tell you how to do that. You charge a lot of money, because if you charge a lot of money, it's not about enriching yourself or lining your own pockets, it's that parents will take it seriously. If you charge the kind of money that the travel soccer club very near my house charges for those kids to be on that soccer team, you better believe that parents are taking that travel soccer club seriously. If you charge similar kinds of rates, you better believe that parents will take music seriously. Or at the very least, you're going to attract parents who are very serious about music and are the kinds of parents you're looking for. That's one option. The other option is that you don't require it at all. That you structure your studio in such a way that you don't need it. That's how you overcome that vulnerability. So those are, to my mind, the only two options you have. And so what I would ask is, which one are you doing? Are you charging a lot of money and making parents sign an engagement contract like you will practice with your child this many times this week? Or you charge so much that parents wouldn't dream of giving up on that investment? Someone pays $500,000 for a house, they're not going to let it sit empty for years and years and years and not take care of it, not keep the yard up, not do necessary repairs, not do maintenance on the house, not do things to winterize the house, not do things to protect it from the elements. Of course they're going to protect that investment. We've got to charge them out. So are you doing that? Or have you structured your program in such a way that your students can get fantastic results whether or not mom or dad is involved? Because what most studios do is right down the middle. They don't do either one of those things. They charge enough to get by as a studio, but not enough to really make the parents sit up and pay attention. And they don't have a program that actually solves the parents' problem from the first point I made here, which is, are students practicing or not? They go right down the middle, and therefore it's kind of a mediocre result, and it's a mediocre experience for the parents. And that leads me to my third point, and maybe not my longest one, but the one where I think there's some really, this has all been actionable, but this is really actionable. The third point of vulnerability is music easy for the kids? Because, and this is really closely tied to the second one, we don't have to worry so much about the parent experience if the program makes music so easy that kids really don't need that outside engagement. And I think there's 5 ways to do that. So if we make that music program super easy, then maybe that other point, those other 2 points really aren't all that much of a vulnerability. So here's 5 ways to do that. 1, you could specialize in preschool only, preschool classes, where kids come, they engage in the lesson right there, in that preschool lesson. And there's a lot of preschool curriculums out there. I'm familiar with them. They are not, I got to be careful because some of my friends here actually license some of those preschool curriculums, but they are not a kind of music lesson that requires outside or home practice. That's really what I'm getting at there. So you could do that. You could up your standards, and I was referring to this earlier. You could make the standards so high for the students that the practice becomes easy because they're actually really, really good at it. Go look at any 11-year-old boy right now and ask him if he knows what the game Fortnite is. Some of these boys spend hours every afternoon after they get home from school playing Fortnite. They're really, really good. Just insanely good. Their reaction times are incredible. They understand, they have this depth of understanding of the game. It's because they're just spending so much time playing this game. If we had children that were practicing that much or were that focused and intense on it, we would have kids that effortlessly played music. And again, it goes back to, are you charging that higher rate? Do you have those requirements? Are you making a stand? Are you taking a stand in your studio to have that kind of requirement so the music is easy for kids? So that's the second one. Third one, you can do what I've done in my group lesson program, which is to focus so much on sight reading and repertoire acquisition with the teacher that when they go home, that they're not struggling to learn the songs at home. They've actually already learned the song and they're just rehearsing the song at home. So that's one. And I've talked about that at length, ad nauseum in other videos. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that one. If you're interested in that, I could probably just leave a comment below. I could leave a video where I talk about that more in depth, but that's the third one. Fourth one out of 5 is you could have a super casual program. It could just be a general music class, a music appreciation class. There are programs that you can license out there that don't require a lot of home practice. It's more of general music appreciation. And this does kind of tie into that more that preschool idea earlier. That is a particular type, though that's more of a prep program. But you could just have a super, super easy program that doesn't have a lot of requirements on kids. And you, again, communicate upfront to parents exactly what your expectations are so that they can set their expectations. Because as I said, the whole purpose of this video, the whole thought behind this video is that everything is marketing now. And what we're communicating and how we're solving these problems for parents is the entire experience in which that they're having in your studio, and that is going to be the decision, or that is going to be the feeling they get that will help them make the decision as to whether they want to stay from day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. Fifth thing, let's see. Oh yeah, I already mentioned it. The kind of the music appreciation idea. So I kind of conflated the fourth and the fifth. The fourth one is just to have a really super casual program where you don't really have a lot of hard requirements on the kids, and you communicate that up front so that parents who are joining understand that and want that. So in other words, they're not joining with one expectation of like, oh, my kid's going to be really, really awesome at this. And then because you're not pushing a rigorous program, then the parents are upset. No, you're up front saying, no need to practice here. we'll do everything here. We're going to focus mostly on music games, and it's going to be kind of more of a general music appreciation class, and that's it. Parents are happy, you're happy, but it all has to do with that communication up front. Now, what does this all have to do with marketing? And again, I'm going to tie this up right now. This is kind of the end of the video. We're drawing to a close. There was a lot of big, weighty concepts here. And in fact, I don't know if I've ever really talked in this way before or communicated these concepts. So if there's a thought, if there's a question, if there's a criticism, would love for you to leave it in the comments, because as usual, I'm going to kind of talk back and forth with you there. So we have about 30 seconds to communicate all of this to parents. We have about 30 seconds between our ads, our website, a profile we might have online for our studio, in a phone call. We have about 30 seconds to communicate that this is the experience that you're going to get here in my studio. And once that attention is spent, you've kind of lost that opportunity. And so the point I'm getting at is that when you have that opportunity and you're communicating that experience, are you taking the most advantage of it as possible? Because, and this is where I really kind of wrap it all up and kind of string all these concepts together, is that parents are savvier than ever. They have high expectations for the experience that they purchase, and that if we are not addressing these 3 vulnerabilities that I mentioned, either ones that we're directly responsible for because we're a single teacher studio, or that we're indirectly responsible for through staff, if we're a larger studio, a multidiscipline studio, a multi-teacher studio, if we're not taking responsibility for those 3 vulnerabilities, the music being easy, students practicing, and parents being engaged, then we are setting the parent up to fail at using the product, kind of in the way that I mentioned with Steve Jobs. We are setting parents up to fail, and they're not going to last very long. So keep this in mind. Our entire business is the product. Everything that we're doing is marketing. And if we want to give parents the best experience possible, if we want to serve them, we have to keep in mind these vulnerabilities and solve that problem for the parent, and then communicate it very, very clearly on the front end. And really, that's the thought that I have today. Everything is marketing, and how are we solving those 3 vulnerabilities? And if we can, we pretty much have the ability to choose our studio success level. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. This was a little bit different. Like I said, this wasn't tactical today. This was a little bit heavier, a little bit more high concept, a little more abstract. I don't usually do videos like that. They require more brain power, and but that's okay. But it's something I've been thinking about for a while, and I wanted to share it. So if this has been helpful, let me know in the comments, hit a like on the video, share it with a friend, and I will see you in our next video. Bye-bye.